Welcome to this week's AI Would Agree, guys. Am I right in thinking it is the first episode of the new year? Fantastic. Are we still saying Happy New Year? I'm going to say it anyway because I haven't done a show this year. So Happy New Year, everyone. I hope you managed a good break of the what is peak season for many people. And fingers crossed that you're all ready for the new year. I'm sure there's lots of sort of conversations happening. Everybody's getting ready to spend money that hasn't been allocated to them yet in the new year, and figuring out what lovely toys and gizmos they're going to get for it. On that note, I'm going to introduce you to our guest for this week. Again, needs very little introduction. Joel Walker, welcome to the show.
Hi, Paul. How are you doing? Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome to have you along. I mean, we've kind of been aware of each other for probably about 2.5 years now, to be fair, like kind of in and out of each other's LinkedIn feeds and things like that. So it's good to finally get you on the show and hear what's going on for you. I mean, kind of before we get into any of that, obviously everybody can see Joel's background. The Knowledge Group is where Joel's at the moment. It's great marketing, by the way. So I'm kind of curious. Just obviously, anybody who knows you've been in the game for quite a long time, Joel.
They know I'm an old man.
Almost as long as I was in retail. How did you get involved in contact centers in the first place? Was it intentional?
I think a lot of people intentionally get into it. Yeah, I mean, firstly, I should probably just thank you. You said it's great to be on the show, and I'm conscious I'm following in a long line of illustrious previous guests. So I just wanted to say, I would normally try and say thank you at the end, but in case I A, forget, or B, we time out, or C, there's technical trouble, I should thank you for having me up front, which hopefully makes you a little gentler during the conversation. I honestly, you said I've followed you for a while, and I really love what TMAC and the modular analytics business, I guess we should be calling you MOJO-CX now. Apologies.
It's all good. I'm exactly the same.
It's thought leadership, and there's not enough debate in our industry. There's a lot of sort of, secrets and walls and barriers, and I think the dialogue you're creating with Mojo and these sessions are fab. So it's nice to be along.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Appreciate
it. And then to me, I guess, and the old man I've become. You asked if I got into it deliberately. I think, like a lot of people, I was a university student with no money and intending to go and work at the UN of all places and needing some cash for an internship. So I got a job at BT in Bristol on the phones under a headset, 25, I lose track now, a bit more than 25 years ago. And I loved it. I fell in love with the industry. I fell in love with the opportunities it gave me. I worked hard. I was sort of promoted quite quickly and it gave me loads of interesting. It gave me a really varied range of roles to do. I set up and ran Orange's offshore operations in India for a few years. That was sort of back in 2000, just to sort of age me a little bit. But that was the Wild West back then. There wasn't the maturity of the market that there is now, but I took Orange over there a long time ago, and much of the last 10 years I spent at Vodafone, where I was the global head of call center procurement, so looking after thousands. I mean, I think we peaked at about 80,000 agents in total. That's across 23 local markets. There's lots in there. It's the second largest telco in the world, right? So it's a huge customer base. I think that the only telco bigger was China Mobile. So Vodafone was huge and a real privilege to spend so long with them. I had the time of my life. We talk about this industry sometimes and the challenges of it, and attrition and burnout and effects on mental health, which are very important to talk about and to consider and to reflect on. But also we probably don't celebrate the industry enough as a route into industry and crikey, it got me out of my student digs and into a suit and into an office, which in my early 20s was some achievement. So it's a transformative industry, and I've loved it. I'd find it hard to leave, and I'm too old now to do anything else. So still around.
You make yourself sound ancient, Joel, but like I'm pretty sure I'm only a few years behind you, mate. Don't associate me with yourself. See, I'm still trying to pretend that I'm young. Still going for that. It's not helping. It's not helping. So just whilst we're on the subject, though, obviously I've got the banner going along the bottom of the ticker along the bottom of the show at the moment. Guys, this is a live show at the moment, so if anybody watching along, I know there's quite a few people who registered to attend. I can see on the LinkedIn feed that there's quite a few people watching. There's a few people on YouTube, etc. Guys, feel free to drop some questions in the comments, and if it's something that I think we can address whilst we're on the show, then I'll absolutely ping them up on the screen and see if we can have a bit of conversation around things. So do feel free to jump in. We do like these sessions to be interactive, and I'm sure as we get through the next few sets of questions and bits and pieces that we're talking about, then some of those things will kind of come to mind where you want to kind of get involved in things. Please do. Be good to hear people's thoughts. So I guess as we move on from that, Joel, you've now become part of the Knowledge Group. What is that about? For anybody a lot of people out there have probably never heard of the Knowledge Group. So explain to me, what are you guys about? What is the vision? What's the dream, I guess?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we are fairly young. We're a little over 2 years old now, so we're building a really interesting range of case studies. The brand's building, as you touched on at the start. So we will get that message out there. But for those few people that haven't yet heard of us, the Knowledge Group, TKG, if you like, bit crisper to say, I was sort of privileged really to sort of get the chance to join. I'd been promoted away from what I loved doing at Vodafone. I had a fantastic time there, but this opportunity came up with two brilliant co-founders that are sort of industry legends to me, really, Dave Rumble and Spencer Brooks. They'd built businesses previously and wanted to establish a sourcing business and called me and said, hey, do you want to come and run that with us, help build it? And that was the start of the roller coaster, really. You ask what it is. It's a procurement advisory business, really. We think that our ways of working are disruptive. I'm not sure, and I've seen a lot of people in this space operating in the way that we operate. So over the last 2 years, we've been building out a range of services we can unpack in a minute. But that the disciplined approach to supporting customers, finding providers, finding suppliers of call center services has been our bread and butter really over the last few years. We're independent. We're not taking a fee or any commission from any provider, any supplier to move work to them. We're a procurement function. We're a specialist advisory business that's independent. So that's been really successful. We've got a range of other services built around that. We'll talk about buy and build and operate maybe in a few minutes. But the business has grown really successfully. We've got a really talented team of industry professionals, veterans, that have got some really interesting experiences and bring so much to our business. And I said that we're a digital procurement business, and digital is perhaps overused sometimes, as is disruptive. But we have digital technology at our core. We've been very clear since we started that we wanted to be a tech-first, data-led advisory business. So not just selling tired, old, stale opinions, but actually helping build better solutions for customers. That as I said, and that's worked. It's gone well. We merged. I don't know if you saw that news in back end of last year. So when was that? November, December time. We came together with a brilliant digital procurement technology partner called Maestro. That we'd been using their technology for a few years previously, and that sort of union of the two. So our specialist advisory services, their technology seemed perfect harmony. So we're now out in the market with more faces than just BPO advisory procurement specialisms, but all manner of other business services that we can help organizations with.
Interesting. So just to rewind a little bit, Joel, when you say that you're disruptive, you're quite right. It's like AI. Right? Everybody likes to claim that they do AI. we do AI. It's not a thing, but that's exactly what it is. So when you say disruptive, what is it that you've what's the challenge that you wanted to break apart when you guys set up TKG, and how do you disrupt that?
That's a fair question. As I say, everyone says they're disruptive. Maybe to substantiate that a little bit, there's probably a couple of ways fundamentally that we're disrupting the market, and I'll talk about it from a couple of different perspectives, maybe. In the buying process, well, in fact, let me just you rewound a bit. Let me just rewound a bit. The services that we have out in the market, buy, build, and operate. We orientate the language around those domains. Within that buy space, that's us helping customers buy solutions, business services, contact center services, or other business services more intelligently, helping them run them more efficiently. Build is us with our implementation services, helping build out call center activities, implementation support, if you like. And operate, really, you might recognize it as a managed service provider. That's where we take on the responsibility for managing call center operations for customers, and we're really proud to do that for some great brands. And why we say, I guess, that's why we say that's disruptive. I'll give you an example. In that buying process, we're working with buyers and providers. Now, we're aiming for both sides of that to see a fairer, more transparent, and more straightforward way of working. In old world, you might be asked, well, can you find me some call center capacity? And you're routed to a select number of organizations that may be paying a commission or an incentive. Yeah. We're not taking any fee, any commission from any supplier in our network. We're paid for by buyers for our independent advice. And funnily enough, that maybe that shouldn't be disruptive, but in this industry, that's I guess point number one. I guess so. For buyers, we're disruptive in that we are fair and independent. From a supplier perspective, we're not looking to take any money from them. We're there operating for them at no cost. They get exposed to deal flow. Where their capabilities match the needs of a buyer, that there's a matching algorithms, and the sourcing process can guide buyers to the providers. And that digital platform, it stores all of the information about the supplier, so they're not having to constantly re-enter the same information time and time again into procurement events. That sadly is disruptive and different, as I'm sure any BPO sales executive on listening in would hear. But also the capabilities. So those are sort of from a buyer and a provider perspective, where I think we're a little bit different. Where we're really disruptive is in the propositions that we're bringing out into the market. The ecosystems of call center providers, we're choreographing, smaller, more agile, often owner-owned BPO operations, and allowing them access to larger deals by us choreographing, 3 or 4 providers to each present to us 100 FTE. We then orchestrate that and present that into an end customer, be that a BPO provider looking for capacity or an end customer looking for capability, as 400 FTE. That's very flexible. We've clearly got great digital insight into the market, so we can very quickly identify the right organizations based on whatever a buyer's requirement is. And that independent digital approach, again, I think is certainly very different. And it's working. We've had over the last year sort of 13,000 FTE that we've been managing through that operate domain. The skills that we've got within the organization, the IP that we've built out around what good vendor management looks like, what really good disciplined operational supplier management looks like in outsource environments. That's our core discipline, and where we've got really, to manage a network of 13,000 FTE at any one time clearly requires when that resource is coming from 10, 12 smaller providers to choreograph that to present as a seamless service into an end customer clearly requires some skills that the team have got. So I think that in today's world, where you're helping smaller providers compete, is different. You see the market consolidating. There's announcements most weeks about suppliers buying other suppliers, and the big are getting bigger, and that's great. There's some fantastic big global brands that we're proud to work with, but we're equally as proud to be working with smaller organizations to help them provide them access to bigger opportunities they might not otherwise get.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense, Joe. I've got a few friends. Tom Mills, if he's watching, will be having kittens at this because, like, what you're talking about is exactly the sort of procurement that he procrastinates for. I
don't know, Tom, but I'll look him up afterwards. So
you'll absolutely enjoy a conversation with Tom Mills. But yeah, it's kind of I guess there's almost procurement just become. Certainly in the contact center world, and probably retail as well, if I'm fair, they've become like a really siloed department that, whilst they serve an amazing purpose for the business, kind of isn't really, because they're limited by the business themselves, limited by the experience that they've got within that industry. It can be quite hard to get out there and understand across the market exactly what's required. And kind of like if I had a penny for every time I've been told by somebody, when I need your services, I will ask you for them, which is a really interesting thing to say, because how do you know what services we provide unless you've come and spoke to me? And effectively what you guys are doing is doing those conversations once to be able to build out a landscape that you can then bring in those buyers straight to the, you're kind of cutting out a lot of the legwork for everyone. A lot of the
absolutely, it's speed to market for people. Before Christmas, we had a request for 150 FTE at a week's notice because it was a retail. It was retail peak. And when I say before Christmas, it was November, not December. But it was, we need it. We need capacity. Our existing recruitment channels are exhausted. Yeah. We need to complement and not overburden our own internal teams by ensuring there's proper capacity there. What have you got? And of course, we've got insight across the market. So we stood up 150 FTE in a week. We've stood up for one customer 800 FTE in a month. Now, clearly, if you said to most BPO providers, I need 800 FTE, they'll give you a glide path that runs out across months. But when you've got a model like ours that encourages collaboration, not competition, and when it's drawing on the best of the industry, then you can react more quickly. Because 800 in a month is challenging, but 100 FTE in a month from 8 different suppliers is much more achievable. And those are the sorts of routines and rhythms that we're getting really good at.
Yeah. And just for clarity for everybody who's watching as well, this isn't a UK based business, right? This is a global business.
Not at all. No, not at all. I mean, we're UK heritage. So as I said, the headset I started under all those years ago was in the UK. Dave and Spence are both UK veterans, but I've spent the last 11 years now in living in Europe, leading Vodafone's call center procurement business, which is based in Luxembourg. So clearly, a number of the relationships that were built during that time out in the industry are useful now. And we've got a very mature UK business. I think we've got a very good understanding of the UK market. We can react really quickly. The other market where we've been leading is down in South Africa. So we're really proud of some work that we're doing down there. We've got a number of different engagements in a few different forms. We're servicing on behalf of the Department of Health, the wellbeing call centers. Those were in pandemic times, COVID response centers. They've morphed into sort of different, thankfully, as the pandemic eases, the nature of those services that those call centers are offering has changed. But again, those are a collection of smaller BPO providers in South Africa that we are supporting and orchestrating to present that capacity into the Department of Health. So that's there's not often in your career that you can do work that you're really proud of and really makes a difference. And I know, a lot of people in this industry have supported the pandemic over the last, it's not fair to say the last 2 years, up until fairly recently. And the work we've done down there in South Africa is fantastic. We've got a great understanding of the supply chain in South Africa, the capability, the strengths, the weaknesses, the ownership structures, the domain expertise, the experiences, the case studies, the capacities, etc. So South Africa again is really in the sweet spot for us. And increasingly, we're 2 years old, so we're maturing from startup to scale up. And Maestro's partnership, I guess, is a sign of us growing up. But that expansion into Europe is starting to accelerate now. So we've got an entity, we've got operations in Europe, and we are, my phone rings most weeks looking for, have you got some German language agents? Anyone on the call or listening in that is responsible from a sourcing multilingual or multiple languages. German is, rarer than hen's teeth at the moment. That there's not enough Germans want to work in contact centers, huge inflation, low unemployment, and not huge offshore populations to service that German language. So no, we are very much live and open for business in Europe with some really interesting case studies starting to build up, and that's why I'm so chirpy still. We've done well, but no one's resting on their laurels. And as I say, I think 2023 for us is about building out into Europe now. We've the model works, right? Buyers love it. The customers that we win stay. The providers in that network, the suppliers in our network, the BPO providers in that network, they love it too. It's better value for buyers, because there's no commission. You think on if you're buying a few hundred FTE and the commission fees in that certain brokerages might charge, it adds an incredible amount in a low margin environment. So actually, the buyer is buying a service. Our expectation is they should be paying us for that, and the advice we give is independent. And I think that principle is exportable and repeatable in different markets, in different environments. The needs are no different in other markets. Certain markets are perhaps a bit more sensitive about sharing data, and our business being built on data needs providers to be sharing with us. I was part of that onboarding process, a good view of their organization. But no, it's game on for Europe.
It's interesting when you say that, because it kind of makes me think of like the early days of MOJO-CX when we were TMAC, and we were very much a data science consultancy, and we'd caused more than a few headaches for procurement professionals because we tended to bid for a data transformation or a digital transformation project in terms of an absolute sum of money. It was upfront. Here's how much it'll cost, and we will get it done as fast as physically possible. Which is really, really disruptive in that market because everybody charges day rate, and the project will take as long as it takes. And before you know it, you're 6 months in and you're several £1 million behind where you want it to be.
There's nothing to deliver.
Yeah. And we had loads of procurement teams trying to compare us like apples and oranges. Like, how do you compare a day rate project consultancy versus somebody who's just giving you a price that seems unbelievable at the time? So, like, I know the impact firsthand that sort of changing commercial structure has on people, and it's quite hard for people to get their head around. But actually, if you bought into that and you understand what that means for you as a business and the benefits it can bring, it's actually transformational to a lot of certainly smaller businesses as well. To your point, like it kind of makes the playing field a lot more even in terms of what you're trying to achieve.
I guess. And big. Oh, sorry. No, interrupted you, Paul. Go on. Sorry.
That's fine.
Well, I was just going to say. No. We're, if we look at our profile of customers now, we've got large BPOs needing capacity, and that's to service a spike in demand. And that might be, several hundred FTE that they haven't got the capacity for. They don't want to overextend the local recruitment pools that they're in. It might only be short-term demand. It helps them avoid CapEx, building out new centers. It helps them avoid OpEx, often in terms of recruitment costs. So there's an appeal there for larger BPOs. For the smaller BPOs, we can help them access skills that are complementary. So, my phone often rings when a bid manager is got 80% of the solution done, and they think, I'm all there apart from, I don't know how to build it. I haven't got an answer to that last 10%. And where we excel is helping organizations with that last 10%. I haven't got the capacity. I haven't got the skills. I haven't got the languages. That's when our phone rings. So that narrative, I think, is working really well. But as you say, the getting that message out there in a simple and straightforward way, we'll help you buy, we'll help you build, we'll help you operate. it's clearly it takes some time to land, and people, what does that mean? What does that mean? And of course, clearly, then we bring in the Maestro portfolio of services, which is even richer because they've got a huge array of business services, thousands of suppliers on the platform that you can tap into. It's a cloud-based SaaS procurement product, really. But bringing those two businesses together, over the next few weeks and months, we need to work through the marketing and the language around that. But I think we're two strong businesses, so we just need to figure out the messaging and then start shouting even louder about it.
I can imagine doing that, you guys, because you're I guess you're consolidating the market to an extent, like, making everybody kind of work together. I'm assuming that generates some interesting insights from your side of things as well. That's got to be a real upside to your side of the businesses. I'm assuming you guys must be abreast of most things that are happening globally, right?
Yeah, I think absolutely yes is the short answer, and I need to learn to give shorter answers. Certainly over the last 25 minutes or so. Yes is the answer. Paul, you're right. Of course, it gives us some great insights. As a supplier on board onto that platform, we're trying to make it friction free. There's no cost, but they are obliged to fill in a number of questions, and that builds into a profile of that organization. That allows us to match them properly and allows us to understand their capabilities properly, rather than sifting through PowerPoint slides. But what that also means is we start to build insight, and that insight has a value in itself. We're not just in our ability to run an RFP in hours, not weeks. And that, again, was perhaps one of the disruptive points. If you've got all of that data, all I really need to understand is the price against a scope, because everything else about you is pre-qualified. So that data allows us to run events literally in hours, not in weeks or months. So that data is useful in that sense. But also at an anonymized and at a macro level, you can start to see trends and patterns. And we've got a bit of work coming out in a few months with the CCMA in the UK. You might know the call center association there, where we're partnering on a report into the sort of a state of the nation, and that we'll launch it in the spring. But that's really us presenting some of that data in an interesting way that informs buyers around what's happening. Because again, it's how do you take that data and turn it from data into knowledge and knowledge into action, and that, I guess, report will be a building block on a never-ending road, right? But that data certainly has a value, and it has it's something that we're keen to share over the coming months. I
guess you could say you're disrupting the industry with knowledge, right? It's an interesting.
I might have that as a tattoo. Disrupting.
I'll have some shares. That's all right. Good. I'll let you off the point. We're good.
Well, that's deal.
But yeah, it's an interesting approach to, and I think that's what the industry needs over and over again, is just a fresh way of looking at things. And it sounds like you guys have got a really, really competitive model there that's going to take you far. And I'm excited to see where you guys are going to go over the next, it's going to be a big year. 2023, 24 is going to be a huge year for everyone.
It's huge for us. Yeah, we've grown up now, and the models, the templates, we've made it repeatable. We've worked hard on making this a sustainable business. This isn't, a flash in the pan. We're building value for the future. So, I think it's going to be an amazing. We're busy already, and it's mid-January, right? So there's lots of work to do. So
you and me both. Yeah, you and me both. Awesome. Well, Joel, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I hope everybody's enjoyed hearing about what you guys at TKG are up to. And please, if you have any need to find out any more, Joel, do you want to pop your email address onto the comments? How do you want people to contact you?
We're all over the place. We all the channels. So I guess the most obvious is our website, www.welovetoknow.com, or LinkedIn. You can find me or the business there. Maestro.com. Call me, email me, or however you see fit. Availability is a speciality, so whatever. There's enough ways of reaching people now, but the front door in is usually through our website. So but people feel free to get in touch for a chat via LinkedIn. I'd love to say hello.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Joel. It's been a pleasure. And take care. Have a great weekend. And
a great weekend. I've got a while Thursday to go yet.
Thursday.
Oh, you tricked me into thinking it was Friday momentarily then. It's kind of you. Thanks. But when it comes, it'll be a good one, I'm sure. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely. Take care,
Magic.
Joel. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Paul. And thanks again for having me. Bye now.
No problem.